Hi, thank you for joining me. O come, Emmanuel, and ransom captive Israel, that mourns in lonely exile here, until the Son of God appears. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come to thee, O Israel. This is probably the most popular of all Advent hymns, and I'd like to talk about this a little bit. Now, Advent is like a play that's divided into two acts. Act 1 goes from the first Sunday of Advent to December 16th, and the primary emphasis is on the Advent, the coming of Christ at the completion of time, the second coming. And then starting with December 17th, we shift into Act 2, which is the more proximate preparation as we recall the celebration of the coming of Christ at his birth, the past coming of Christ. And so these final days are sometimes known as the privileged days. And so from December 17th to December 24th, there are special prayers and evening prayer of the church. They're called the Great O Antiphons. So when you hear O, like O come, Emmanuel, it's a depiction of longing, a depiction of desire. And so there are these different verses to the song, and actually the last one, O come, O Emmanuel, is actually the first one we sing when we sing that hymn, all right? But chronologically, it's the last one. And these hymns, or these antiphons, not hymns, they're antiphons, there's a tripart structures in them. There's a title, such as O Emmanuel, and then after that there's an exposition, praising God in one way or another, saying what God has done. And then there is an imperative, come, or help us, or do something. And these are some very, very beautiful prayers. And the different verses of O come, Emmanuel, are based on these great O antiphons. And so I'd like to share them with you just a little bit as we prepare through these coming days. The first one is December 17th. O wisdom, who proceeds from the mouth of God, reaching from end to end, strongly, sweetly, disposing all things, come and teach us the way of prudence. December 18th. O Lord and leader of the house of Israel, who appeared to Moses in the red flame, and at Sinai gave him the law, come to redeem us with your extended arm. December 19th. O root of Jesse, who stands as a sign among the peoples, before whom kings cover their mouths, and who is worshipped by the nations, come and free us. Now, do not delay. December 20th. O key of David, and scepter of the house of Israel, who opens and no one closes, closes and no one opens, come and lead forth those imprisoned, sitting in the darkness and the shadow of death. December 21st. O rising dawn, it says literally, O Orions. O rising dawn, splendor of eternal light and sun of justice, come and illumine those sitting in darkness and in the shadow of death. December 22nd. O King of the nations and their desire, cornerstone who makes two one, come and save man whom you have redeemed from the dust. And finally, December 23rd. O Emmanuel, our King and lawgiver, expectation of the nations and their Savior, come to save us, O Lord our God. And I forgot to mention that, not surprisingly, these antiphons are very much influenced by the writings of the prophet Isaiah, who we hear so much from during the season of Advent. So as we enter into Act 2, let us continue to prepare our hearts for the coming of Christ, not only at the completion of time, but as we remember his birth at Christmas, as we remember that he came into the world, not one like us, but as one of us, to share life with us, to reveal to us what it means to be human, to reveal God to us. And let us follow in his way in his way of wisdom and prudence, his way of hope, his way of faith, and most of all, in his way of love. Let us continue to pray for each other and for our suffering world. And a blessed final days of Advent to everyone.